The voicemail shattered everything. My daughter's voice, once warm, now a stranger's, calm, distant, telling me she was married. I was not invited. Then she asked for the cottage keys. My last piece of home. They needed to unwind, she said. At 65, I thought betrayal no longer surprised me. I had survived loss, rebuilt from ruin, learned to stand alone. But this felt different, colder, calculated. I opened the drawer and pulled out an old notebook. Black cover, spiral binding, pages that remembered lies. I wrote his name, Colin Morrison, her new husband. Then I wrote dates, details, small things that didn't fit. My hand was steady, my instincts screaming. Patterns don't lie, people do. And I was about to uncover a truth that could destroy us. Or set us free. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. I learned my daughter got married from a voicemail. Her voice was flat, professional, like she was confirming a dentist appointment. She said it had been intimate. Only people who really mattered were there. Then she asked me to overnight the keys. Keys to my cottage on Cape Cod. They needed to unwind, she said. I played it 3 times. Listened for warmth. Found none. My name is Ellen Hart. I am 65 years old. I spent 30 years as a high school counselor. I taught girls to trust their instincts. I raised a daughter who once promised she would never shrink for anyone. That version of Brooke disappeared 6 months ago. 3 weeks earlier, we still talked every Sunday. We traded stories about bad television and overpriced coffee. Then she met Colin Morrison at a networking event in Boston. He was handsome in the way that photographs well. Tall, clean jawline, expensive watch. His manners were polished, too polished. He shook my hand like a campaign manager. Smiled without moving his eyes. When he first visited the cottage, he walked the perimeter slowly. He asked about the roof. He mentioned property values, waterfront appreciation, renovation costs. I told myself I was being paranoid. Brooke glowed when she looked at him. Her laugh came easier. Love makes people radiant. I wanted to believe that. But phone calls began to thin. Once a week became once a month. Her tone shifted. She started using words that didn't sound like hers. Boundaries, space, growth. She told me traditions could be reimagined. That families evolve. I asked if she was happy. She said I was overreacting. Colin's voice echoed beneath her answers. By October, I stopped asking questions. The door had already closed. The engagement announcement appeared online first. No phone call, no warning, just a photo of them on a beach I didn't recognize. I texted congratulations. She replied with a heart emoji. That was the last time we felt like mother and daughter. 2 months later, the voicemail arrived. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the phone. The morning light was thin. The coffee had gone cold. I replayed her words in my head. Only people who really mattered. I was not on that list. My hands were steady. My mind was not. I thought about calling, demanding answers, begging for clarity. Instead, I opened the drawer beneath the counter. Inside was a small notebook. Black cover. Spiral binding. I used it years ago when students lied to keep from falling apart. Patterns reveal people. Lies leave trails. I flipped to a blank page and wrote Colin's full name. Then I wrote the date we met. The cottage visit. The engagement post. I added small details. Things he said that felt rehearsed. His interest in my property. His questions about my late ex-husband's estate. David had been gone for 8 years. Heart attack. Sudden and unforgiving. He left behind debt and a fractured business partnership. Colin never knew David, but he asked about him often. I called Brooke's college roommate, a woman named Jenna who still sent Christmas cards. Jenna hesitated before answering. Then she admitted Brooke had been distant. She said Colin discouraged old friendships, called them distractions. Jenna hadn't been invited to the wedding either. I thanked her and hung up. Then I hired an investigator, a quiet woman named Karen who specialized in background checks. Karen called me 4 days later. Her voice was careful. She said I should sit down. Colin Morrison had been engaged twice before. Both engagements ended abruptly. Both women came from families with money, real estate, inheritance, assets. Both families discovered irregularities, questions about Colin's finances, requests for account access. One family hired lawyers, the other simply cut him off. Neither engagement made it to a wedding. Karen sent me the file by secure email. I printed every page, spread them across the dining table. Photographs of Colin with other women. Smiling, polished, identical. Then I found something that made my chest tighten. A newspaper clipping from 30 years ago. A fraud case in New Hampshire. David's name was there, listed as a victim. His business partner had embezzled funds. Disappeared with cash meant for a development project. The partner's name was Gerald Morrison, Colin's grandfather. The article said Gerald confessed on his deathbed. Mentioned money hidden in offshore accounts. Money that was never recovered. Karen's notes showed recent withdrawals. Small amounts. Spread over 3 years. The accounts were tied to a trust. A trust that legally belonged to David's estate. David was dead. His only heir was Brooke. I closed the file and stared at the ceiling. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I thought about Brooke as a child. Bare feet on the cottage steps. Sticky popsicle hands. She used to trace her homework in pencil on this same table. Now she was married to a man who saw her as inventory. I stood and walked to the window. The yard was brown. November had stripped the trees bare. I decided my wedding gift would be the truth. Brooke called 2 days later. Her voice was bright, performative. She said the wedding had been beautiful. Small ceremony on Martha's Vineyard. She asked if I could send the cottage keys. They wanted a mini moon by the ocean. I told her of course. I would send them right away. Then I went to my office and pulled out a leather portfolio. Inside, I placed the newspaper clipping. Karen's file. Bank statements. I added a business card for an estate attorney named Dana Park. On top, I wrote a single note on cream stationery. Every new husband should know what family means. I sealed the portfolio and addressed it to their apartment in Boston. Then I mailed it priority overnight. The keys were inside, tucked into a side pocket. I went home and pruned the rosebushes in the backyard. The thorns caught my gloves. The stems were brittle. I worked slowly, methodically, and I waited for the phone to ring. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The phone rang at 6 in the morning. Colin's voice came through sharp. Controlled anger wrapped in corporate tone. He said I had crossed a line. That I was unwell. He called me dangerous. Said I was sabotaging Brooke's happiness. I let him finish. Silence is a weapon when used correctly. Then I told him to read the documents carefully. Public records don't lie. He hung up without responding. The sun was barely up. The kitchen was cold. I made coffee and watched steam curl against the window. Outside, frost covered the grass in white needles. Brooke called an hour later. Her voice was raw from crying. She asked what I had done. Why I would ruin her wedding. I told her the portfolio contained facts, not accusations. She said Colin was hurt, that I had humiliated him. I asked if she had read the newspaper clipping. The line went quiet. Then she said she needed time. Time to think. Time to process. She hung up before I could answer. The house felt too large. Too empty. I poured the coffee down the sink and went for a walk. The neighborhood was still asleep. Mailboxes stood like silent witnesses. Fallen leaves crunched beneath my shoes. I walked past the elementary school. Past the library where Brooke learned to read. The playground equipment was rusted. The swings hung motionless. Memory is a cruel architect. It builds rooms you can't escape. I thought about the summers we spent at the cottage. Brooke used to collect shells in a plastic bucket. She named each one. She trusted me then, believed I could fix anything. Now she thought I was the problem. By the time I returned home, my hands were numb. The mailbox was empty. The porch was bare. I unlocked the door and stepped into silence. The afternoon stretched long. I tried to read. Couldn't focus. The words blurred together. My mind kept circling back. I thought about calling my sister Rachel. Decided against it. Rachel believed in letting people make their own mistakes. She would tell me to back off. To let Brooke learn. But some mistakes kill you before you learn the lesson. I heated soup for dinner. Ate half and threw the rest away. The evening news played in the background. I didn't listen. At 9 o'clock, I turned off the lights and went upstairs. Sleep came in fragments, thin and unreliable. The next morning, I found an email from attorney Dana Park. She had received inquiries. Someone wanted to discuss David's estate. She asked if I had initiated contact. I replied yes. Explained the situation briefly. Dana responded within the hour. She said this was serious. If Colin had accessed funds from Gerald Morrison's trust, it was theft. David's estate had legal claim to that money. She asked for permission to investigate further. I gave it without hesitation. 2 days passed in heavy silence. I cleaned the house room by room. Scrubbed grout. Vacuumed corners. Physical work kept the mind from spinning. Friday afternoon, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Brooke standing on the porch. She wore the same clothes from our last phone call. Wrinkled. Stained. Her eyes were swollen. Hair unwashed. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. She asked if she could come in. I stepped aside without speaking. She walked to the kitchen table and collapsed into a chair. The same chair she used for homework. For birthday cakes. For teenage heartbreak. I made tea. Set the cup in front of her. She wrapped her hands around it but didn't drink. Then she pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. She said she had been digging. Researching. Calling people. She found emails between Colin and someone named Damon Price. Emails about maintaining offshore access. About timing withdrawals carefully. She called Lily Park, one of Colin's former fiancés. Lily told her everything. The same pattern. The same script. Fast romance. Isolated from family. Financial documents disguised as wedding planning. Lily's family discovered Colin trying to add his name to property deeds. They ended the engagement immediately. Threatened legal action. Brooke said she also spoke with Nora Green, the other former fiancé. Nora described being cut off from friends. being told her mother was toxic. Nora's therapist eventually helped her see the manipulation. By the time she left, Colin had drained her savings account. Brooke's voice cracked. She said she felt stupid. I told her intelligence has nothing to do with it. Predators don't target the weak. They target the trusting. She asked why I didn't tell her sooner. I said I did, just not with words she was ready to hear. She cried then. Deep, shaking sobs that came from the chest. I sat beside her and waited. Grief has its own timeline. You can't rush the breaking. When she finally stopped, her face was blotchy. Her breathing uneven. She asked what happened to David's money. I told her the truth. Her grandfather's partner stole it. Colin's grandfather. The man who confessed but never returned the funds. That money should have been hers. Her inheritance. Her security. Instead, Colin had been withdrawing it slowly. Feeding off her family like a parasite. Brooke stared at the table. Her fingers traced the wood grain. She said Colin had asked about her savings account last week. He wanted temporary access. Called it a gesture of trust. She had hesitated. Something felt wrong. Now she knew why. I asked where Colin thought she was right now. She said he believed she was staying with a friend. Cooling off. He had texted multiple times. Apologizing. Asking her to come home. She hadn't responded. I picked up my phone and called Dana Park. Put it on speaker so Brooke could hear. Dana answered on the second ring. Her voice was efficient. No nonsense. I explained that Brooke was with me. That she had evidence. Dana asked to meet immediately. Said this was time sensitive. We agreed to her office. Monday morning at 9. Brooke asked what would happen next. Dana said that depended on what Colin had done. If he had knowingly accessed stolen funds, it was a federal crime. If he had used marriage as a tool for fraud, that was another charge. She would need documentation, emails, bank statements, witness testimony. Brooke said she had emails, screenshots, names of other women. Dana told her to bring everything. We hung up. The kitchen felt colder. Brooke asked if she should go back to the apartment. I said no, not yet. Not alone. She could stay here, where the doors locked from the inside. She nodded slowly. Then she asked if I still had the cottage keys. I pulled them from the portfolio. The metal was cold against my palm. She took them and held them tight. She said she used to feel safe there. On the beach. In the water. She wanted that feeling back. I told her we would go together. Soon. But first, we had work to do. She wiped her face with her sleeve. Straightened her shoulders. The girl who trusted too easily was gone. The woman who would fight back was just beginning. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Brooke slept in the guest room. Her childhood room with faded wallpaper. I heard her moving at dawn. Water running. Drawers opening. She came downstairs dressed in black. Hair pulled back. Face pale. We didn't speak. Words felt unnecessary. I poured coffee into travel mugs. We left the house at 8:15. The drive to Dana Park's office took 40 minutes. Traffic moved in slow pulses. Brake lights flickered red. Brooke stared out the window. Her hands twisted a tissue into shreds. The law office sat in a brick building downtown. 3rd floor. Corner suite. Dana met us in the waiting room. She was younger than I expected. Mid-40s. Sharp gray suit. Handshake like a contract. She led us into a conference room. Glass walls. Long wooden table. Manila folders already arranged in neat rows. Dana gestured for us to sit. She took the head of the table. She asked Brooke to start from the beginning. Brooke's voice was steady. She explained how they met, how he moved fast, how he praised her career but slowly suggested she work less, how holidays with me became optional, then discouraged, then forbidden. Dana took notes on a yellow legal pad. Her pen moved without pause. She asked about finances, joint accounts, shared passwords. Brooke said Colin had suggested combining everything after the engagement. She had hesitated. He called it a trust issue. They compromised. He gained access to her savings account statements. Not the account itself, just visibility. Dana's pen stopped moving. She looked up. She asked if Colin had ever mentioned his grandfather. Brooke said yes, once. He said his grandfather left him a small trust. Nothing significant, just enough for emergencies. Dana slid a folder across the table. Inside were bank statements, withdrawal records, dates and amounts. The trust belonged to Gerald Morrison, Colin's grandfather, the same man who embezzled from David Hart 30 years ago. The money was never recovered, never returned to David's estate. But someone had been withdrawing from it steadily. Small amounts, under $10,000, amounts designed to avoid federal reporting requirements. Dana said the pattern started 3 years ago, right after Colin's first engagement ended. Brooke's face went white. She asked if this was legal. Dana said no. The trust money was stolen. It belonged to David's estate. By law and by inheritance, it belonged to Brooke. Colin had been stealing from her before they even met. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. I asked Dana what came next. She said we needed federal involvement. This crossed state lines. She had already contacted an agent, someone who specialized in financial fraud. Her name was Maya Ortiz. FBI, White Collar Crime Division. Dana said Maya was building a case. Colin wasn't the only target. There was an accomplice, a man named Damon Price. Damon handled the technical side, offshore accounts, shell companies, digital trails. Together, they had targeted at least 4 women. Maybe more. Brooke's hands shook. She asked what Dana needed from her. Dana said evidence, documentation, willingness to cooperate, and one more thing, something more difficult. She needed Brooke to go back. Back to the apartment. Back to Colin. Back to pretending nothing had changed. Brooke stood abruptly. The chair scraped against the floor. She said she couldn't. She wouldn't. Dana's voice stayed level. She explained that without direct evidence, prosecution was harder. They needed Colin to admit knowledge, to confirm intent, a recorded conversation, something clean and undeniable. I asked if Brooke would be safe. Dana said Agent Ortiz would control every detail. Monitoring, backup, clear exit plan. Brooke turned to the window. Her reflection stared back, ghostly against the glass. She asked how long she would have to pretend. Dana said a few days. A week at most. Just long enough for Colin to feel comfortable. To stop performing. Brooke's shoulders rose and fell. She was crying without sound. I stood and moved beside her. Placed my hand on her arm. She asked what I thought she should do. I told her the truth. That it was her choice. Only hers. But that some doors only open once. She wiped her eyes. Turned back to Dana. She said she would do it. But she had conditions. She wanted me involved. Kept informed of every step. She wanted to meet Agent Ortiz first. Face to face. And she wanted a promise. That when this was over, it would truly be over. Dana agreed to all three. She picked up her phone and made a call. Agent Ortiz arrived within the hour. She was younger than Dana. Latina, wedding ring on her left hand. She wore jeans and a blazer. Badge clipped to her belt. Her voice was warm, but her eyes were all business. She sat across from Brooke and explained the process step by step. The apartment would be monitored. Audio only. No cameras. Brooke would wear a wire. Small, undetectable beneath clothing. She would need to ask specific questions. Use certain phrases. Maya would coach her. Rehearse scenarios. The goal was simple. Get Colin to admit he knew about the stolen funds. Get him to connect the money to their marriage. Once he did that, the case would be solid. Maya said timing mattered. Colin needed to feel secure. Brooke should text him tonight. Say she had overreacted. Missed him. Suggest coming home Friday. Give him time to prepare his story. Men like Colin always have a story ready. Brooke asked what happened if he didn't say anything incriminating. Maya said they would try again. Adjust the approach. But she believed he would talk. Predators love to explain themselves. They need you to understand how clever they are. Brooke nodded slowly. Her jaw was set. She asked what to do if she felt unsafe. If something went wrong. Maya gave her a code word. Lighthouse. If Brooke said that word, the operation stopped immediately. Agents moved in. No questions. No delays. We left the office at noon. The sun was too bright. I drove Brooke to a late lunch. A diner we used to visit. Red vinyl booths. Laminated menus. Coffee that tasted like memory. She ordered a grilled cheese. Didn't touch it. I ate soup and watched her stare at nothing. She said she felt like she was splitting in two. Half of her wanted to run. Drive to the cottage. Disappear. The other half wanted to burn everything down. I told her both halves were valid. Both were hers. She asked if I had ever felt this way. I thought about David. About the years after his business collapsed. The shame. The silence. The way he stopped sleeping. I told her yes. That betrayal rewires you. But it doesn't have to break you. She pushed the plate away. Asked if I thought Colin ever loved her. I said I didn't know. And that it didn't matter. Love that comes with conditions isn't love. It's negotiation. She laughed bitterly. Said she should have known better. I told her she was 28. Not a psychic. We finished our coffee and drove home in silence. That evening, Brooke sat on the couch with her phone. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she typed a message to Colin. She said she was sorry. That her mother had confused her. That she wanted to come home. To talk. To reset. She hit send before she could change her mind. The response came within seconds. Colin said he missed her. That he understood. That love was worth fighting for. He suggested Friday night. He would make dinner. Open wine. They could start over. Leave the past behind. Brooke showed me the message. Her hand trembled. I told her she was the bravest person I knew. She said she didn't feel brave. She felt hollow. I said courage isn't the absence of fear. It's walking forward anyway. She leaned against my shoulder. We sat like that until the room grew dark. Outside, the streetlights flickered on one by one. The neighborhood settled into evening routines. Doors closing. Cars pulling in. Ordinary life continuing while ours splintered apart. Friday was 4 days away. 4 days to prepare. To rehearse. To breathe. 4 days before my daughter walked back into the lion's mouth. And I would be listening to every word. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Tuesday morning, Agent Ortiz arrived at my house with a black duffel bag. She set it on the kitchen table and unzipped it slowly. Inside were devices I had only seen in movies. Wires, transmitters, battery packs. Brooke stood by the counter. Her arms crossed tight. Maya explained each piece. How it worked. Where it would go. The wire would tape to Brooke's torso. Between her ribs. Beneath her bra. The microphone was smaller than a dime. Skin-colored. Nearly invisible. The battery pack would sit at the small of her back. Everything designed to disappear beneath normal clothing. Maya said the range was good. They could monitor from a van outside. Audio would record directly to a secure server. Timestamped. Admissible in court. Brooke asked if Colin would be able to feel it. Maya said not unless he was looking for it. The adhesive was medical grade. It wouldn't shift or peel. But Brooke needed to stay calm. Control her breathing. Panic could make the microphone rustle against fabric. I asked what happened if Colin touched her. Maya's expression didn't change. She said Brooke should redirect him. Suggest they talk first. Pour wine. Sit at the table. Physical intimacy complicated clean audio. Made everything harder to parse. Brooke's face flushed. She said she wouldn't let him touch her. Maya nodded. Said that was the right instinct. But she needed to seem natural. Not robotic. Not defensive. Colin would sense a performance. He was trained to read women. The next 3 days were rehearsal. Maya came every morning. Stayed until afternoon. She ran scenarios. Asked questions. Adjusted phrasing. She taught Brooke how to guide conversation without seeming obvious. How to pause. How to let Colin fill silence. Men like Colin needed to explain. To justify. To dominate the narrative. Give him space and he would incriminate himself. Maya played Colin's role. Brooke practiced responding. At first, Brooke's voice was mechanical. Scared. By Thursday, she sounded almost normal. Almost herself. Maya said that was enough. Perfection would feel fake. Thursday night, I helped Brooke pack an overnight bag. Clothes she had left at the apartment. Toiletries. Her laptop. Everything needed to look routine. Like she was simply coming home. She folded a sweater 3 times. Unfolded it. Started again. Her hands couldn't stay still. Her breathing came too fast. I sat on the edge of the bed and told her she could stop. That no case was worth her safety. No justice worth her breaking. She shook her head. Said she needed to do this. Not just for herself. For Lily. For Nora. For whoever came next. Colin wouldn't stop. He would find another woman. Another family. Unless someone stopped him first. I asked if she was sure. She said no, but she was going anyway. We went to bed early. Neither of us slept. The house creaked in the darkness. Wind rattled the windows. I heard Brooke moving in the guest room. Pacing. Restless. At 3 in the morning, I went downstairs and made chamomile tea. Brooke appeared in the doorway. Her face was pale. She asked if I thought David would be proud of her. I told her David would be in awe. She smiled weakly. Said she wished she had known him better. I said he was complicated. Brilliant with numbers. Terrible with feelings. But he loved her fiercely. Even from a distance. She asked what happened after Gerald Morrison stole the money. I told her the truth. David never recovered. Not financially. Not emotionally. The betrayal hollowed him out. He spent years trying to rebuild. Took loans he couldn't repay. The stress killed him before the debt did. Brooke's eyes filled. She said it wasn't fair. I agreed. Fairness was a myth we tell children. But accountability was real. And we were building it brick by brick. Friday arrived too fast. Maya came at noon with the equipment. She worked quickly, taped the wire along Brooke's ribcage, adjusted the microphone, tested the connection. Her voice came through a laptop speaker. Clear, undistorted. Maya reminded Brooke of the plan. Arrive at 6. Act natural. Let Colin lead. Let him talk. Let him think he was winning. If anything felt wrong, say the code word. Lighthouse. Agents would be inside within seconds. Brooke asked how many people would be listening. Maya said 3. Herself and 2 colleagues. All experienced. I asked if I could listen too. Maya hesitated. Then she said yes. But I had to stay silent. No reactions. No interruptions. No matter what I heard. I promised. We drove to the apartment in separate cars. Brooke went alone. Maya and I followed in an unmarked van. The building was brick. 5 stories. Outdated intercom system. The surveillance van parked across the street. Tinted windows. Nondescript. Inside, monitors glowed. Headsets hung on hooks. 2 agents I hadn't met sat at the equipment. They nodded but didn't speak. Maya handed me a headset. Showed me where to sit. The seat was hard. The air smelled like stale coffee. Through the windshield, I watched Brooke enter the building. She moved slowly, head down, shoulders tight. The door closed behind her. She disappeared. Maya's voice came through the headset. Audio check. A rustling sound. Then Brooke's breathing. Fast. Shallow. Footsteps on stairs. The jingle of keys. A door opening. Hinges creaking. Colin's voice filled my ears. Warm. Relieved. Manufactured. He said he was so glad she was home. That he had missed her. That this week had been torture without her. Brooke's voice was quieter. She said she missed him too. He asked if she wanted wine. Red or white. She said red. Anything was fine. Glasses clinked. Liquid poured. The sound of a cork being replaced. Footsteps across hardwood. Colin suggested they sit. Talk things through. He said her mother had poisoned her mind. Made her doubt him. But family was complicated. He understood that. His own family had been difficult. Messy. Full of secrets. Brooke asked what kind of secrets. Colin laughed. Said every family had skeletons. Money troubles. Old grudges. His grandfather had been involved in some business deal that went bad. Before Colin was born. Ancient history. Brooke's voice stayed level. She asked if his grandfather left him anything. A pause. The sound of wine being sipped. Colin said yes. A small trust. Not much. Just enough to stay comfortable. Brooke asked if that was where the money came from. For their honeymoon plans. Another pause. Longer this time. Colin said he had access to family resources. That was all. Nothing she needed to worry about. Brooke pushed gently. She said she wanted to understand. To be a real partner. If they were going to share a life, she should know how money worked. Colin's tone shifted. Became firmer. More paternal. He said money was his area. He handled investments. Strategy. Growth. Her job was to focus on design. On creativity. On what she did best. They each had roles. That was how marriages worked. Maya leaned forward. Her jaw tight. Brooke tried again. She said she noticed he had asked about her savings. Was he planning to invest it somewhere? Colin's voice turned smooth again. Reassuring. He said he just wanted visibility. To help her build wealth. Maybe consolidate accounts. Maximize returns. He could front deposits for their real honeymoon if she gave him access. Just temporarily. Just to show they were a team. Brooke asked where those deposits would come from. The apartment went silent. Seconds stretched into minutes. Then Colin spoke. His voice was different. Colder. He said a man shouldn't be judged for using what his family left him. That people didn't understand how wealth worked. How it moved. That what mattered was building their future. Together. Brooke asked if he meant the offshore accounts. Static crackled. Then nothing. Maya grabbed her radio. Called for the team to move. The agents beside me yanked off their headsets and bolted from the van. I heard shouting through the speaker. Doors slamming open. Voices identifying themselves. Federal agents. Hands visible. Don't move. A crash. Something breaking. Colin's voice rising. Demanding a lawyer. Calling this entrapment. Then Brooke. Small and steady. Saying she was okay. Maya told me to stay in the van. She disappeared into the building. I sat alone with the headset still on. My heart hammering. Through the windshield, I saw neighbors gathering. Phones recording. 15 minutes later, Maya emerged with Brooke. Brooke's face was blank. Shock or relief or both. Behind them, 2 agents walked Colin out in handcuffs. He wore an expensive sweater. His hair was perfect. He looked small, ordinary, nothing like a predator. Just a man who made bad choices and got caught. Brooke climbed into the van. Sat beside me. She didn't speak, just leaned into my shoulder. I wrapped my arm around her and held on. The van pulled away. The city lights blurred past. And somewhere in a federal database, audio files uploaded. Timestamped. Secured. Undeniable. Colin Morrison had just confessed to everything. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Saturday morning, the arrest made the local news. The headline called Colin a startup advisor. The second paragraph called him a fraud. Brooke sat at my kitchen table with cold coffee. She hadn't slept. The wire had left red marks across her ribs. She kept touching them. I made scrambled eggs. She pushed them around the plate. Outside, rain tapped against the windows. Gray light filled the room. Her phone buzzed constantly. Friends, coworkers, reporters. She turned it off. The silence felt louder. Maya called at 9. Said bail had been set high. $250,000. Colin's accounts were frozen. His passport flagged. His apartment searched. They found documents. Spreadsheets. Lists of names. More women than they initially thought. 8 confirmed. Possibly 12. Brooke's hands went still. She asked if they all fell for it. Maya said they all trusted someone they loved. That wasn't falling. That was human. She said the prosecutor wanted to meet. Build the case. Prepare for trial. Brooke asked how long this would take. Maya said months. Maybe a year. These cases moved slowly. But Colin wasn't going anywhere. The evidence was clean. The recording was perfect. He would either take a plea or face a jury. Either way, he was finished. We hung up. The kitchen felt too small. Too warm. Brooke asked if we could drive somewhere. Anywhere. I grabbed my keys. We left without a plan. The rain had stopped. Wet pavement gleamed under cloudy skies. I drove south. Toward the coast. Toward the cottage. Brooke didn't ask where we were going. She just watched the trees blur past. An hour later, we crossed into Cape Cod. The air changed. Salt and pine. The cottage looked smaller than I remembered. white paint peeling, shutters faded, but the ocean was still there. Constant, indifferent. We went inside. The air was stale. Dust covered the counters. I opened windows. Brooke walked through each room slowly. She stopped at the doorway to her old bedroom. Touched the frame. She said she used to feel safe here. Before everything, I told her she could feel safe again. It would just take time. She asked how much time. I said I didn't know. That healing doesn't follow schedules. We spent the afternoon cleaning, sweeping floors, washing windows, physical work that required no thinking, just motion. By evening, the cottage smelled like lemon cleaner and ocean air. We made spaghetti from a box. Ate on the porch as the sun dropped. The waves rolled in steady. Seagulls circled overhead. Brooke said she felt like she had been asleep for 6 months. That she didn't recognize the person who married Colin. I told her that person was still her, just buried under someone else's voice. She asked if I had ever felt that way with David. I thought about it, about the years I shaped myself around his silence. I said yes, that love sometimes asks us to fold ourselves smaller. The trick is knowing when to unfold. We stayed at the cottage through Sunday. Walked the beach. Collected stones. Brooke found a piece of sea glass. Green. Smooth. Worn by time. She said it looked like something broken made beautiful. I said that was exactly what it was. Monday morning, we drove back to the city. Reality waited patiently. Maya called that afternoon. Said Colin's lawyer was already negotiating. He wanted a deal. Reduced sentence. Testimony against Damon Price. Damon was the technical expert. The one who managed the offshore accounts. Without him, Colin was just a con man. With him, it was organized crime. The prosecutor was interested, but wanted to hear from the victims first. From Brooke. From Lily. From Nora. From all of them. Brooke said she would testify. Whatever they needed. Maya said it wouldn't be easy. Defense attorneys played dirty. They would question her judgment, her motives, her memory. They would try to make her look bitter, vindictive, unreliable. Brooke said let them try. She had the recording, the evidence, the truth. Maya laughed quietly. Said she liked her already. That night, Dana Park emailed. She had filed civil actions. Against Colin. Against Damon. Against the trust holding Gerald Morrison's money. She was seeking recovery for all victims. Full restitution. Punitive damages. The amount tied to David's original losses was substantial. 6 figures. Maybe 7. It wouldn't bring David back. But it would honor what he lost. Brooke asked what happened to the money if they won. Dana said it would go to David's estate. Which meant it went to Brooke. Brooke stared at the email. Then she asked if she could donate it. Set up a fund. Help other women escape financial abuse. Dana said she could do whatever she wanted with it. It was hers. Brooke nodded. Said she wanted something good to come from this. The weeks crawled forward. Heavy and strange. Brooke moved back to her own apartment. The one Colin never lived in. Her real place. With her own furniture. Her own air. She went back to work. Her colleagues were kind. They didn't ask questions. She threw herself into projects. Late nights. Clean lines. Control through design. I visited twice a week. We ate takeout. Watched terrible reality shows. Sometimes we talked about Colin. Sometimes we didn't. In early December, Lily Park flew in from Chicago. We met her at a coffee shop downtown. She was older than Brooke. 34. Lawyer. Guarded eyes. She said Colin had convinced her to add him to her mother's trust. For estate planning purposes, for tax benefits, for their future children. Her mother's accountant caught it. Called it fraud. Threatened prosecution. Colin disappeared the next day. Changed his number. Blocked her everywhere. Lily said she felt stupid for years. Ashamed. Like she should have known. Brooke reached across the table. Held her hand. She said shame belonged to Colin. Not to them. Lily's eyes filled. She said she was glad someone finally stopped him. Nora Green arrived 2 days later. Younger. 26. Still visibly fragile. We met at my house. Quieter. More private. Nora said Colin had drained her savings. $17,000. He called it an investment. A business opportunity. A sure thing. When she asked for updates, he got angry. Called her controlling. Paranoid. He isolated her from friends. From family. From anyone who questioned him. By the time she left, she had nothing. No money. No confidence. No self. Her therapist helped her rebuild. Slowly. Piece by piece. She said she still had nightmares. Still flinched at loud voices. Brooke listened. Didn't minimize. Didn't compare. She just said she believed her. That what happened was real. Was wrong. Nora cried. Said no one had validated her like that before. That most people asked what she did wrong. Why she stayed. Why she trusted him. I made tea. We sat together as the afternoon turned to evening. Before Nora left, she hugged Brooke. Whispered thank you. Brooke held her tight. Said they were going to bury him. Christmas came and went. Quiet. No pretending. Brooke and I cooked a small meal. Watched old movies. Went to bed early. In January, the prosecutor's office called. They had a court date. Preliminary hearing. Colin would be there. So would Damon. Both facing multiple charges. Conspiracy. Wire fraud. Money laundering. Theft. The prosecutor said the case was strong. The recording was damning. But they wanted the women to be prepared. To testify if needed. Brooke said she was ready. The hearing was scheduled for late February. Cold. Gray. Unforgiving. We had 2 months to wait. 2 months to prepare. 2 months for Brooke to practice telling the truth out loud. In a courtroom. In front of strangers. In front of him. I told her she didn't have to look at Colin. She could look at me instead. She said she wanted to look at him. Wanted him to see her face. Wanted him to know she wasn't the woman he thought he married. That she was someone stronger. Someone who fought back. Someone he should have left alone. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. February arrived with ice and gray skies. The courthouse sat downtown. Stone steps. Heavy doors. Metal detectors. We arrived early. Brooke wore navy. Hair pulled back. No jewelry. She looked older. Harder. Ready. Maya met us in the lobby. She reviewed what would happen. Preliminary hearing. Judge would evaluate evidence. Decide if trial proceeded. Colin's lawyer would argue. The prosecutor would counter. Witnesses might be called. It was procedural. Clinical. But it mattered. Brooke asked if she would have to speak today. Maya said probably not. Today was about the state's case. The evidence. But Colin would be there. In the courtroom. 10 feet away. Brooke's jaw tightened. She said she could handle it. We rode the elevator to the 4th floor. Hallways smelled like floor polish. Courtroom C. Oak benches. High ceilings. Fluorescent lights. We sat in the gallery. 3rd row. Maya beside us. Other women filtered in. Lily. Nora. 2 others I hadn't met. They nodded at Brooke. A silent solidarity. The bailiff called for order. Everyone stood. The judge entered. A woman. Late 50s. Silver hair. No expression. She sat. We sat. The room settled into heavy quiet. Colin was brought in from a side door. Orange jumpsuit. Handcuffs. Pale skin. He looked thinner. His hair was longer. His eyes scanned the room. When he saw Brooke, his face changed. Something between anger and disbelief. She stared back. Didn't blink. Didn't look away. Damon Price sat at a separate table. Younger. Nervous. Kept glancing at his lawyer. The prosecutor stood. A man named Gerald Chen. Mid-40s. Sharp suit. Organized folders. He outlined the charges. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Wire fraud. Money laundering. Theft. He described the pattern. Multiple victims. Calculated targeting. Years of deception. He mentioned the recording. The wire. Colin's own words admitting knowledge. He referenced bank records. Emails between Colin and Damon. Offshore account activity. He said the evidence was overwhelming. The crime was clear. Justice was necessary. Colin's lawyer stood next. A woman named Rebecca Marsh. Expensive blazer. Cold confidence. She argued the relationship was genuine. That Colin loved Brooke. Wanted to marry her. She said the recording was taken under duress. That Brooke was coached. That entrapment was possible. She claimed Colin's access to family funds was legal. That inheritance wasn't theft. She painted him as a man caught in family drama. Misunderstood. Unfairly targeted. The prosecutor countered immediately. Said the funds were stolen. Proven. Documented. That Gerald Morrison confessed to embezzlement before he died. That the money belonged to David Hart's estate. To Brooke. Not to Colin. That accessing stolen funds knowingly was a crime. The wire proved knowledge. Proved intent. The judge listened. Took notes. Her face revealed nothing. She asked to hear the recording. The courtroom went silent. A laptop was opened. Speakers activated. Colin's voice filled the space. Smooth. Confident. Incriminating. His words about family resources. About not being judged. About using what was left to him. Then Brooke asking if he meant the offshore accounts. The pause. The shift in his tone. His admission that a man shouldn't be judged for using family money. The recording ended. Silence pressed down like weight. The judge asked if Colin disputed the recording's authenticity. Rebecca Marsh said no. But context mattered. Intent was unclear. The judge's eyebrow lifted slightly. She said intent sounded quite clear. She asked the prosecutor about the other victims. Gerald Chen gestured to the gallery. Said 4 were present. 4 more would testify at trial. All followed the same pattern. Fast romance. Financial pressure. Sudden disappearance when caught. He said this wasn't love gone wrong. This was deliberate. Systematic. Criminal. The judge turned to Damon's lawyer. A younger man. Public defender. Overwhelmed. He said Damon was willing to cooperate. To testify. To provide full documentation. He was a technical consultant. Didn't target victims. Just managed accounts. Followed instructions. He wanted a reduced sentence. Probation. A second chance. The prosecutor said the state was open to a deal. Depending on testimony quality. The judge made notes. Flipped through documents. The clock ticked audibly. Finally, she looked up. Her voice was measured. Precise. She said the evidence supported probable cause. The case would proceed to trial. Bail would remain. Passports would stay flagged. Both defendants would be monitored. Trial was set for late April. 8 weeks away. She dismissed the court. The gavel struck wood. Sharp. Final. Colin was led out. He looked back once. His eyes found Brooke. She didn't flinch. Didn't move. Just watched him disappear. Outside, the air was frigid. Wind cut through coats. Reporters gathered at the bottom of the steps. Cameras. Microphones. Shouted questions. Maya said we didn't have to answer. Could walk past. Say nothing. But Brooke stopped. Turned. Faced them. She said her name. Said she was a survivor. Not a victim. Said Colin Morrison was a predator. That he targeted vulnerable women. That she wanted others to know they weren't alone. That justice was possible. Her voice didn't shake. Didn't apologize. Didn't ask permission. The cameras blinked. Questions flew. She ignored them. Turned. Walked away. Lily caught up to us at the corner. Said Brooke was brave. Inspiring. Said she wished she had been that strong years ago. Brooke said strength was just fear that kept moving forward. We went to lunch. All of us. The women who survived Colin. A diner 3 blocks away. Worn booths. Laminated menus. Coffee that burned. Nora talked about therapy. About rebuilding credit. About trusting again. Another woman named Jessica talked about her daughter. How she explained why mommy cried. Lily talked about her law practice. How she now specialized in financial abuse cases. How she turned her pain into purpose. Into protection for others. Brooke listened. Asked questions. Took mental notes. She said she wanted to do something similar. Design apps. Tools. Resources. Things that helped women see the patterns. Recognize the red flags. Escape sooner. The table grew quiet. Then Jessica said they should form a group. A support network. Monthly meetings. Shared resources. Collective strength. Everyone agreed. They exchanged numbers. Made plans. Chose a date. By the time we left, the sky had cleared. Pale blue. Cold but bright. Brooke and I walked to the car in silence. She said she felt lighter. Like something had lifted. I asked what changed. She said seeing him in handcuffs. Seeing him small. Powerless. Realizing he never had control. He just borrowed hers. And she took it back. That night, Dana Park called. The civil case was progressing. Assets were being traced. Accounts frozen. Properties evaluated. The trust holding Gerald Morrison's money would be liquidated. Distributed to victims. Brooke's share would be significant. Enough to fund her vision. Build something lasting. Dana said it would take time. Months. Maybe longer. But the law was on their side. The evidence was clean. The outcome seemed certain. Brooke thanked her. Said she wasn't in a hurry. That some things were worth waiting for. Worth fighting for. We spent the weekend at the cottage. The ocean was wild. Waves crashed violently. We walked the beach in heavy coats. Watched seabirds dive for fish. Brooke said she used to be afraid of the ocean. Of its size. Its indifference. Now she found it comforting. The reminder that she was small but not powerless. That the world was big. That Colin was just one man. One moment. One mistake. Not her whole story. Not even a full chapter. Sunday evening, we drove home as the sun set. Orange and pink. Painfully beautiful. Brooke said she was ready for trial. Ready to testify. Ready to finish this. I told her I would be there. Every day. Every moment. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Said she knew. That she never doubted me. Even when she doubted herself. The road stretched ahead, long, dark, uncertain, but we had light, had each other, had truth on our side. And sometimes that was enough. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The trial began on a Monday in late April. Spring had arrived reluctantly. Trees budded green. Rain fell in cold sheets. The courthouse looked the same. Stone, heavy, unmoved by seasons. Brooke wore gray. Simple, professional. Her armor was invisible but present. We arrived with Maya. The hallways were crowded. More press this time. The case had grown. Media coverage expanded. Colin's pattern was public now. Courtroom C was packed. Every seat filled. Cameras banned but notebooks open. The jury sat in 2 rows. 12 faces. Mixed ages. Guarded expressions. They would decide Colin's future. And in some ways, Brooke's past. Judge Patricia Wolfe presided. The same woman from the preliminary hearing. Her presence commanded silence without effort. Colin sat at the defense table. Navy suit, white shirt, expensive haircut. He looked composed, confident, like this was a negotiation he could win. Damon sat separately. He had taken the deal. Testimony for reduced charges. His lawyer looked relieved. Damon looked terrified. The prosecutor stood. Gerald Chen. Clear voice. Organized mind. He outlined the case simply. Said Colin Morrison was a predator. That he studied women. Targeted those with family assets. Isolated them systematically. That he used charm as a weapon. Marriage as a business transaction. That he stole from Brooke Hart. From Lily Park. From Nora Green. From women who trusted him. Loved him. Believed his lies. Chen said the evidence was overwhelming. Financial records. Emails. Recorded confession. That justice required accountability. That victims deserved restitution. Rebecca Marsh stood for the defense. Her expression was granite. She called Colin a victim himself. Of family dysfunction. Of harsh judgment. She said he genuinely loved these women. That relationships were complicated. That accessing family money wasn't theft. That confusion wasn't crime. She said the prosecution relied on emotion. Not facts. Not law. The jury listened. Some leaned forward. Others sat back. All watched carefully. Chen called his first witness. A forensic accountant named Dr. Richard Powell. Dr. Powell was 70. Wire-rimmed glasses. Methodical speech. He explained Gerald Morrison's embezzlement in detail. The stolen development funds. The offshore accounts established in the 1990s. The hidden money. He showed how those accounts remained active. How withdrawals began 3 years ago. Small amounts. Structured to avoid detection. Timed around Colin's engagements. He traced each withdrawal to Colin's personal accounts. To his expenses. His lifestyle. He said the pattern was deliberate. Calculated. Criminal. Marsh cross-examined. Asked if Colin knew the money was stolen. Dr. Powell said the timing suggested knowledge. The structure suggested intent. Marsh pressed. Said suggesting wasn't proving. Dr. Powell adjusted his glasses. Said patterns reveal behavior. Behavior reveals intent. The jury took notes. Next came Damon Price. He walked to the stand slowly. Hands shaking. He swore to tell the truth. His voice barely carried. Chen asked how he met Colin. Damon said through a tech forum. 6 years ago. Colin needed help managing overseas accounts. Hiding transactions. Avoiding scrutiny. Damon said he didn't ask questions at first. The pay was good. But eventually, he realized what Colin was doing. Targeting women. Exploiting relationships. Chen asked if Damon ever objected. Damon said no. He was paid to stay quiet. Paid well. Chen asked about Brooke specifically. Damon said Colin researched her before they met. Found articles about David Hart. About the embezzlement. About the cottage. About the inheritance. Colin called it a perfect setup. Said marriage would give him legal access. He told Damon to prepare account transfers. To be ready when the time came. The courtroom stirred. Whispers. Shifting bodies. Judge Wolf called for silence. The room obeyed. Marsh stood. Asked Damon about his plea deal. Asked if he was testifying to save himself. To avoid prison. Damon admitted yes. Said he was trying to make things right. Marsh said convenient timing. Convenient morality. Damon said maybe. But everything he said was true. The emails proved it. Marsh sat down. Her face tight. Chen called Lily Park next. She walked to the stand in a burgundy suit. Composed. Professional. A lawyer facing her past. She described meeting Colin. The whirlwind romance. The isolation from family. How he convinced her to add him to her mother's trust. For estate planning. How her mother's accountant caught it. Called it fraud. Threatened action. How Colin vanished the next day. Blocked her. Disappeared completely. She said she blamed herself for years. Felt stupid. Weak. Broken. Until she learned she wasn't alone. That Colin had done this before. And after. Marsh asked if Lily was angry. If she wanted revenge. Lily said yes to both. That anger was appropriate. Revenge was called justice. Marsh said emotion clouded judgment. Lily said experience clarified it. The gallery murmured approval. Judge Wolf's gaze swept the room. Silence returned. Nora Green testified next. Younger. Quieter. Her hands gripped the chair. She described Colin draining her savings. $17,000. How he called it an investment. A sure thing. A future for them. How he isolated her from friends. Told her they were jealous. Toxic. Dangerous. How she lost herself. Lost her confidence. Lost everything. Her voice broke. She paused. Drank water. Continued. She said her therapist helped her see the pattern. The manipulation. The abuse. That financial control was just another form of violence. Marsh asked if Nora's therapist coached her testimony. Nora said her therapist taught her to recognize truth. Not create it. The difference was survival. Chen called 3 more women. Similar stories. Same pattern. Same predator. By the time they finished, the jury looked exhausted. Heavy with information. Judge Wolf called a recess. 30 minutes. We stood outside the courtroom. Brooke leaned against the wall. Her face was pale. Her breathing shallow. I asked if she needed air. She shook her head. Said she needed this to be over. Needed him to pay. Needed to move forward. Maya said we were close. 1 more day. Maybe 2. Then the jury would decide. Then it would be finished. The trial resumed. Chen played the recording. Brooke's voice. Colin's voice. The damning admission. The courtroom was silent except for the audio. Every word landed like a stone. When it ended, Chen rested the prosecution's case. Marsh called Colin to the stand. He walked slowly, shoulders back, head high, performance mode activated. He swore to tell the truth. Sat, looked at the jury with practiced sincerity. Marsh asked him to explain his relationship with Brooke. He said he loved her. That the marriage was real. that her mother poisoned everything, that Ellen Hart was controlling, manipulative, unwilling to let Brooke grow up. He said the recording was taken under duress, that he was cornered, scared, confused, that his words were twisted, taken out of context, misunderstood. He said he never meant to hurt anyone, that his intentions were pure. Chen cross-examined. His voice was surgical. He asked about the offshore accounts. Colin said they were family assets. Chen asked if Colin knew the money was stolen. Colin hesitated, said no. Chen showed emails. Colin discussing withdrawals, timing, structures, asked if that looked like ignorance. Colin said he was managing what was left to him. Chen asked why he researched Brooke before meeting her. Colin said he didn't, that Damon was lying. Chen showed search histories, browser records, timestamps. Colin's face shifted. The mask cracked slightly. Chen asked why Colin mentioned offshore accounts during the recording. If the money was legitimate, why hide it? Colin said he wasn't hiding anything, just being private. Chen asked if privacy was the same as theft. Colin didn't answer. Chen asked if love justified manipulation, isolation, financial exploitation. Colin said love was complicated, that people wouldn't understand. Chen said the jury would decide what they understood. He sat down. Colin returned to his table. His confidence was gone. Closing arguments followed. Chen was brief, factual, devastating. He said the evidence spoke clearly, that Colin was guilty, that justice demanded consequences. Marsh argued reasonable doubt, argued complexity, argued confusion. The jury was dismissed, sent to deliberate. We waited in the hallway. Minutes felt like hours. Brooke paced. Lily sat still. Nora stared at her hands. 3 hours later, the bailiff called us back. The jury had reached a verdict. We filed in, sat, waited. The foreman stood. A woman in her 60s. Schoolteacher. Steady voice. She read the verdict. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy, wire fraud, money laundering, theft. The courtroom erupted. Judge Wolfe called for order. Colin's face went blank, empty, disbelieving. Brooke closed her eyes. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Not sadness. Relief. Release. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks. But the outcome was clear. Colin Morrison was finished. Outside, cameras waited. Questions shouted. Brooke stopped, faced them, spoke clearly. She said justice was possible. That survivors had power. That silence protected predators. She said she hoped other women would find their voices, find their strength, that they deserved better. All of them. We walked away, into the afternoon light. The air smelled like rain and possibility. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Sentencing day arrived 2 weeks later. May had softened the world. Trees bloomed. Warmth returned to the air. The courthouse steps were crowded. Supporters, press, curious observers. Brooke wore white. A deliberate choice. Clean, forward-facing. We entered together. Maya, Dana, Lily, Nora, the other women. A small army of survivors. Silent but present. Judge Wolfe took her seat. The courtroom rose and fell like breathing. Colin was brought in. Orange jumpsuit. Thinner now. Older somehow. His lawyer sat beside him. Expressionless. The fight was over. The judge reviewed the charges. The guilty verdicts. The evidence presented. She asked if Colin wished to address the court. He stood slowly, cleared his throat. His voice was smaller than before. He said he was sorry. That he made mistakes. That he never meant harm. That circumstances were complicated. That he hoped people could understand. His words felt rehearsed. Empty. Performance without conviction. Judge Wolf's face remained neutral. She thanked him. Told him to sit. Then she asked if any victims wished to speak. Brooke stood. Her hands were steady. Her voice clear. She walked to the podium. Placed a single page on the surface. She didn't read from it. Just kept it there. An anchor. She said Colin didn't just steal money. He stole time, trust, identity. That he convinced her she was wrong to question him. Wrong to doubt. That he borrowed her voice and tried to keep it. She said she spent months wondering what was wrong with her. Why she felt small. Why she couldn't breathe. Why home felt like a trap. Then she learned it wasn't her. It was him. His design. His choice. She said she refused to carry his shame. Refused to apologize for surviving. That she would believe herself louder next time. Trust her instincts. Protect her boundaries. She said she hoped he would spend his time in prison thinking about the women. The real people behind his schemes. The lives he damaged. The futures he stole. She said she would use her future to help others. To build something good. That his legacy would be jail. Hers would be freedom. She returned to her seat. The room was silent. Heavy with respect. Lily spoke next. Then Nora. Then Jessica. Each voice stronger than the last. Each woman reclaiming her narrative. Refusing to be erased. Judge Wolf listened to every word. Her expression softened slightly. When the last woman finished, the judge took a long breath. She said she had reviewed the case thoroughly. Considered all factors. The severity of crimes. The number of victims. The calculated deception. She said Colin Morrison had weaponized trust. Exploited vulnerability. Destroyed lives. That his actions were not mistakes. They were predatory. Intentional. Unforgivable. She sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison. No parole eligibility for 8 years. Mandatory restitution to all victims. She added supervised release. Registration requirements. Financial monitoring for life. She said every job interview. Every background check. Every relationship. Would carry the weight of his choices. Would remind him of what he did. The gavel struck. Final. Absolute. Colin's shoulders slumped. His lawyer whispered something. He didn't respond. He was led away. Didn't look back. Didn't fight. Just disappeared through the side door. Into irrelevance. Outside, the sun was too bright. The air too warm for the moment. Brooke stood on the courthouse steps. Cameras gathered but she ignored them. She turned to the women beside her. Pulled them into a circle. They held each other. Cried. Laughed. Breathed together. Maya said she was proud of them. That they changed the system. That other women would benefit from their courage. Their testimony. Their refusal to hide. Dana said the civil case was nearly complete. Funds would be distributed soon. That each woman would receive what was rightfully theirs. Plus damages. Plus interest. That Colin would leave prison with nothing. Just debt and consequences. We went to lunch. All of us. A restaurant with outdoor seating. Sun dappled and alive. The conversation was light. Purposefully so. Stories about jobs. Hobbies. New beginnings. Lily talked about expanding her practice. Hiring younger associates. Building something lasting. Nora said she was writing a memoir. That her therapist encouraged it. That it helped. Jessica said she started dating again. Slowly. Carefully. With boundaries like steel walls. Brooke listened, smiled, contributed small updates about her design work. She said she was developing an app, a resource for recognizing financial abuse, red flags, warning signs, exit strategies, all free, accessible, anonymous. She said she wanted it to launch by fall. Wanted Colin's victims to be partners. Their experiences, their insights, their survival strategies. Everyone agreed, volunteered, committed. By the time we left, the afternoon had stretched long. Golden light, soft shadows. Brooke and I drove to the cottage. The windows down, ocean air rushing in. The drive felt different, lighter, like we were moving toward something instead of away. The cottage looked the same. White clapboard, weathered shutters, sturdy, but it felt new, reclaimed, ours again. We unloaded bags, opened windows, let the salt air clear out the stale. That evening we walked the beach. Barefoot, unhurried. The tide was low. Wet sand stretched wide, smooth and unmarked. Brooke found shells, turned them over in her palm, placed the best ones in her pocket. She said she used to collect these as a child, build tiny kingdoms in the sand. She said she felt like that child again. Curious, unafraid, open. I told her she never really left. She just went quiet for a while. She asked if I ever doubted her, if I thought she would come back. I said I knew she would. That strength doesn't disappear, it just waits. We sat on the dunes as the sun set. Orange, pink, purple, impossible beauty. Brooke said she wanted to plan something here. A gathering, a celebration. Invite the women, their families, anyone who helped them survive. A reminder that they won. That they built something better from the ruins. I said the cottage would be perfect. That it was built for new beginnings. We stayed through the weekend. Fixed the broken screen door. Painted the deck railings. Hung string lights across the porch. Filled the house with small improvements. Monday morning, we drove back to the city. Traffic was light. The sky cloudless. Brooke said she was thinking about selling her apartment. Finding something new. Somewhere Colin never touched. Never slept. Never left his mark. I said fresh starts required fresh spaces. That she deserved a home that felt clean. She asked if I would help her look. Be part of the decision. I said yes. That I would be there for whatever she needed. Always. The weeks that followed were ordinary. Beautifully so. Brooke worked. Met with developers. Refined the app. Tested prototypes. She attended support group meetings. Shared resources. Listened to new stories. She dated briefly. Ended it kindly. Said she wasn't ready. Maybe wouldn't be for a while. That was okay. Healing moved at its own pace. In July, Dana finalized the civil settlement. Checks were mailed. Accounts credited. Brooke's share was significant. More than expected. Enough to fund her vision. She set up a nonprofit. Called it Lighthouse. After the code word. After safety. After guidance. She hired Nora as communications director. Lily as legal counsel. Jessica as outreach coordinator. They rented a small office. Painted the walls teal. Hung photos of the ocean. By August, the app was ready. Beta testing complete. Launch scheduled for September. Brooke invited everyone to the cottage for the release party. 30 women came. Some survivors. Some supporters. Some family. We cooked lobster rolls. Made lemonade. Set up speakers on the deck. The sun was warm. The ocean calm. Laughter floated on the breeze. At sunset, Brooke stood on the porch. Raised a glass. Spoke briefly. She said a year ago she couldn't imagine this moment. This freedom. This joy. That she had been lost. Controlled. Silenced. But women who were taught to swim don't drown when the tide turns. That we survive. We rebuild. We help others do the same. She thanked everyone. For believing her. For fighting beside her. For refusing silence. Then she launched the app. Pressed a button on her phone. Made it live. Lighthouse. A beacon for anyone searching for the shore. The group cheered. Phones lit up. Downloads started immediately. That night, we sat around a bonfire. Marshmallows. Stories. Quiet contentment. Brooke leaned against my shoulder. Her breathing even. Peaceful. She said she finally felt like herself again. I said she was more than herself. She was who she was meant to become. The fire crackled. Sparks drifted up. Disappeared into darkness. Waves rolled in steady. Eternal. Indifferent to human drama. But we were not indifferent. We were alive. Present. Victorious. The gift I gave Brooke wasn't revenge. It was truth. It was air. It was light. Some gifts keep giving. Truth, once unwrapped, refuses to be boxed again. And women who fight back don't just survive. They become the lighthouse for others still searching.